Hello, I'm Sarah Manning and I'm an accredited mediator.
And I'm Jo O'Sullivan, and I'm also a accredited mediator. And we're here today to try and shine a light on what is family mediation. Sarah, what's your definition?
So for me, family mediation is a process that helps separating families keep control over their future and reach agreements directly between them. I feel like the role of a mediator is to sort of facilitate the discussions between them and help steer them into making reaching an outcome that will suit both of them and something that both of them can live with. And to me, it's a much less stressful process. They're making decisions together for the benefit of them. They know their family, each individual situation's different, and they should be able to reach decisions that suit their family and work best for them. Also feel like it's a good way of saving money. You get much more out of an hour and a half mediation session than you would do with letters to and back from solicitors, and it's much quicker. You get a session in straight away, you're getting answers there and then than waiting for letters to be responded. But for me, it's just about like working collaboratively and getting an outcome, like I say, that both of them can live with.
So, will the mediator tell them what to do?
No, so the role of the mediator is to help facilitate, like I say, the discussions, rather than telling them what to do. But sometimes for me, my mediations, I might suggest things that I've used or what other families have done that they might not have thought of before. So I always think that I'll make it clear to them, I'm not telling you what to do, but I might be able to suggest other things. And a lot of the times, we're like, oh, we haven't thought of that.
Yeah, that because you've got years of experience, as have I, with hundreds of families we've helped. I mean, do you think people come along thinking this is about getting back together again, like a kind of reconciliation or some sort of therapy?
No, a lot. Sometimes they do, when when especially if someone comes to me for mediation, when I invite the other party to come along, they get a bit misconception of what mediation is, and sometimes I'll say, "I've no counselling background. I'm not there to help get you back together, and it's about practical steps moving forwards to reach agreements."
Yeah, and what kind of things? I mean, so should we just go to and fro for what kind of things mediation might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
useful? So maybe a parenting plan. What else?
So yeah, parenting plan, communication's a really big thing that I spend a lot of time talking about.
Yeah, okay, and sorting out the finances if they've got any money, sorting out property, houses, maintenance, child maintenance. So that's when they're breaking up. And then of course stuff to do when they're thinking about getting into a relationship. What kind of things might they use it for?
Yeah, so like parenting plans and things, I tend to go through quite a lot of detail there so that we've gone through every eventuality, because I always think it's better to be proactive than reactive to a situation. So, like you just mentioned, new partners or something, people might not want to think about that, but it's much better to have something in writing what you've agreed if one of you do get a new partner. So you are aware of what boundaries and what each other expects in them situations.
Yeah, I mean that's right. So they're thinking about everything that perhaps they hadn't thought about. And sometimes the devil's in the detail, isn't it? We can kind of eke out, where they're at and where they want to get to. Um, in your experience, do many people come to you for prenups? They're the agreements that people enter into before they get married, or do a civil partnership, so they can sort out what would happen if they did break up. Do you come across that often?
Yeah, not as often as I think that they probably should, than dealing with something like that, because it's so unromantic for people to be thinking of a prenuptial agreement before they've got married. I
Yeah.
always say it's a bit like an insurance policy. You hope never to use it, but it's there in case you do. And I think it's a much nicer way to agree terms of a prenuptial agreement with somebody, a mediator there, that's able to give you the information but make then proposals. So it always looks a bit harsh when you're getting solicitors' letters than actually speaking in a session.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's used enough for that process personally for the referrals I get, but I think it's a really good way of doing it. Do you get many, Joe, for the
No, that's my
prenuptial?
experience as well. I mean, not enough people do prenups, full stop. I mean, you know all about
Mm.
the parents' promise as well, don't you? Where, more couples think about that, what they'd do with a lottery win than what they would do if they broke up about the children. And I'm just wondering, mediation might be quite a good idea to give that promise to each other about how they think things might be, if they were to break up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And like you say, to talk about that and have that information in a prenuptial agreement that maybe they agree the process so it's in there that they agree to come to mediation at the first instance to talk about how they want to deal with the separation. I think that's and it just sets out, like you say, the agreement that you have between you. And I always say it's always the case when you have children together, you don't talk about when you get married and have kids of what your policy is on discipline, what your policy is on what you feed your kids, screen time, and then sort
Screen
of the
time,
children are
yeah,
here and you muddle
yeah.
through.
You muddle through, which is fine when you're together, of course. Not so easy when you're not. What do you
Mm.
think about and what happens when people are in mediation, either on screen or in person? Because I think sometimes, I mean, someone once, this is not a joke, and this is a serious, can I take a pen? There's this a sort of idea that I had absolutely no idea what to expect. So although we talk about what mediation is, the reality is what's the practicality of it?
Yeah, so I always say to people, we do I do record sessions, so at the end I will send a note of what the discussions were. But in terms of during the session, I always say to people, do a pen and paper. And if they come into the office to see me, I always put pen and paper out for them. And if I'm at home, I'll say to them at the beginning, have you got pen and paper? That I'm not there to transcribe or get
Mm.
say exactly what's done, and it makes it a bit more informal then and able to explore the what they're discussing because everything is on a without prejudice basis. So neither of you are going to get thrown back at you in court proceedings later because you said something that then you later regret. So I always say we've got a bit of a protective bubble around mediation that it's a safe space to speak openly and talk about how you're feeling and how we can go through that. And the sessions tend to be for me an hour and a half to 2 hours. Anything over that, it can be very emotionally draining for the mediator and each person taking place. And to just make sure manage the process. And each situation is different. So what I tend to do is after I've had both of their individual assessment meetings and got to know the family a little bit better, then I'll think to myself how best this would play out. And at the beginning of the first joint session, I'll explain how it's going to work, and we all agree together and have like an agenda and what's been discussed in that first session or another session. Does that tends to be how you deal with it, Joe, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always surprised. I think it's vital to have those individual confidential meetings with each of the couple before we get
Mm.
going, because I think it's really important that they spend a bit of time with me to get to know me and for me to really get to know them. I mean, I work with a workbook, but no one else does. But just for them to think about what their values are, what's important to them moving forward, and perhaps the first time in a long time, start thinking about what's important to them, not to be selfish,
Yeah.
I want the vase or I want the kids with me all the time or nothing like that, but it just to kind of open up the possibilities for them. Um, I mean, I wonder, I think if we've explored it. So yes, absolutely. The first the single meetings, and then we go into a fairly quickly into a joint meeting, and then we'll talk about anything interim that's come up, anything urgent they want to talk about. And then really I'm the thinking pair of hands in the conversation, aren't I, as are you? Okay, what we need to do is if they're talking about money, okay, let's talk about financial disclosure, explain what it is, go through the Form E, the timescales they'd be expected to do it in, what I will do in the background, what that's likely to cost them. And then, of course, if we're thinking about parenting, okay, let's look at all the different things. I mean, you've already mentioned what happens when there's new partners, what about birthdays, Christmas, other religious celebrations, uh, your birthday, Father's Day, Mother's Day. The list is huge, but most people don't go there, do they?
Mm.
And so it's really, the parenting plans can be really, really detailed depending on the kind of people they are. And sometimes they can just be, look, we're all right. We've got the idea. We're going to sort that little bit out for ourselves. So everyone's different, aren't they? I've never met a couple that are the same.
No,
Yes.
no, I've never. And I think sometimes, and I always say it's important to, like you say, get to know the values because I once did a whole mediation on talking about what the children could screen time and things or what food they could eat. Where other people, you talk about that, I'm like, oh no, I trust them, their parenting skills. It's just about the actual arrangements and things. And, it's different processes. And I see that all the time as a mum with other parents. We all have different values, in
Mm.
general. And it's how you all got brought up individually as well, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
it is. So how do you think we've covered it? Do you think people would have more of an idea now about what mediation is?
Yeah, I think like I say, it's important just to maintain the mediation, and it's that old thing that keeps coming back, that people think it's about getting back together, and it's really not. That's the
Yeah.
bit that I think is really important. It is about practical steps moving forwards, and to try, we're not here to change people's personalities or change how people are, but sort of look at how we can work together. One thing I always do ask as well is, where do you see yourself in like 5, 10 years time
Oh
of
yeah. Great
relationship? Because
questions.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't want to miss out on key events for birthdays, graduations, things like
Yeah.
that. And it's
Yeah.
about, when you get stuck in that hostility, that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to do as mediators, to make it as amicable as possible, isn't it, and come up with a workable arrangement. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the times people come to us as mediators when things have got really difficult, and we try get building blocks to get them back to communicating properly, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think also to see things like parenting plans, not things for the children, as organic documents, that they might try it for a bit and then come back maybe a week, a month, 2 months, a year later, or 5 years later, and just go, okay, this worked, this didn't, and not just see everything as though they have to get everything sorted out now in the kind of heat of the moment, but rather see it as a perhaps a more of an ongoing relationship, that they mustn't feel that they can't come back to us, that they have to get everything right now.
Mm.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, look, yeah, I think there's got a very high success rate. About 70% of people who come to mediation successfully sort things out. There's legal aid as well. Remember, so for funding of mediation, there's legal aid if people are qualified financially. There's the MOJ voucher that's still going at the moment, £500 once they're in the Zoom room or in the mediation room. And people can find the money because it is seen to be the cheapest way of doing this.
Yeah, yeah, because the cost is shared between them equally. And the voucher scheme is fantastic because they get to have that first session for free, and it's not means assessed. So they get to see if mediation's the right process for them and actually try it before you invest the time into it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, all right, thank you. And if anyone has any other questions, then me and Joe are always happy to ask any
Yeah.
questions, or get in touch with the Family Mediation Council for further information on their website. Thank you.
Thank you.